From the After 9 podcast studios, this is After 9 with Scott and Kat.
Hey now!
Hello, friends.
Welcome to After 9, a brand new episode, and this one, I'm not quite sure where it's going to go, Kat. I've got a lot of feelings right now after watching what went on yesterday. We're going to start off with what I'm going to say is the biggest news in Toronto right now, based on what you see on the actual news. Taylor Swift. The Eras Tour kicks off tomorrow, the first of 6 shows. And I was watching the people yesterday go into this merch shop that they've opened up.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm still remembering everything they said. This is going to be great for the economy and so on and so forth. And no doubt, there's a lot of people staying in hotels and likely dining at restaurants, maybe buying some stuff at shops and stuff. But it seems like the bulk of the money for our economy is going into the economy of Taylor Swift. They're charging $130 plus tax for a hoodie. $60 is the cheapest t-shirt. And people are falling all over themselves to pay that kind of money.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I understand how great it is to have some new merch from your favorite artist. But these prices are crazy. People are coming out with receipts for like, I got $600. Oh, I spent $700. I spent $900. And I'm thinking, you're bragging about that? You spent $900 on 3 hoodies and a t-shirt. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's their money to spend how they want, though. I understand from a standpoint of this for a lot of people is once in a lifetime. They are massive fans. Am I a Swiftie in any regard? No. But it doesn't mean that at one point I wasn't like a Spice Girls fan and would have probably purchased items for, at that time, crazy prices as well. You know, I did my fair share of purchasing things that probably made older people especially be like, why are you spending money on that? You know, I know that they also want to wear it to the show. They want to wear that legitimate merch to the show. So it didn't surprise me that yesterday was so busy there. It really didn't. I was excited for people. And you know, the thing with Taylor Swift is, like, you can hate on her all you want. I understand she's in the news a lot. You can hate on her for that. But she really has this thing about her. Like, there's very few people in the world, and I only think of, like, the big ones, the big stars, who are able to do anything like this. To convert an entire massive city, by the way, into it being about you when you're just there to visit. And that's just a blip in your schedule. And people are turning their lives around, not just in the, you know, GTHA, but around the world. I mean, I was watching news coverage as well, and I saw some people who came from England, like from the UK, from all over the place for these particular shows, because they thought, you know what, I've always wanted to see Canada anyway. I'm going to go see Taylor Swift. So it's bringing in a lot of people. All in all, like, it's a good thing. We have so much shitty news in the world right now. The fact that people are really excited to see a show that they want to see and get up and close as they can to an artist that they love. It's all like, I was feeling the feels for those people. I'm happy for them. And I understand why they got to price it the way they price it, because merch ain't cheap. Merch is never cheap for any popular artist. So when it comes to Taylor Swift, that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I get it. And it was interesting because, you know, I saw people talking to the reporters who were out there. Man, I don't know how you get that gig. How do you get assigned to, you got to cover Taylor Swift for 6 nights at Rogers Center? That's going to be pandemonium, by the way, when that concert lets out tomorrow. So I'm watching people and they said, you know, I just wanted to be down here and be around other Swifties. And I thought, okay, I mean, clearly this is some sort of a spiritual moment for you that I personally do not understand. What I do understand is why there's so many people from the States and Europe coming to Toronto for these shows, namely because it's a heck of a lot cheaper. If you're from London, England, and you want to see Taylor Swift, you're saving 35 cents on every dollar you spend when you do it in Canada, because the Canadian dollar is not good. It's under 71 cents again today, by the way. So people flying in for these shows, yeah, it's probably a lot cheaper. Good for you. I guess it remains to be seen what kind of an actual economic impact it's going to have. It just occurred to me yesterday, though, that, wow, that's a lot of money, and that all goes to Taylor, right? Like, do we even charge HST on that? Will the feds and the province make any money off of this
I don't know
stuff?
how it works for merch sales in the city. The fact that it's going to be running for quite a while makes me think that, yeah, of course, I think they're going to pay something toward it. Don't forget, licensed clothes is always more expensive. When you throw out concert merch and you can only get it during this run, limited time, all those things in the mix, that's going to jack up the price. But again, like, to your point, though, people are paying it.
Another thing that's on my mind is I never thought I'd get to this point. You know, I'm a diehard Leafs fan. And I don't claim to speak for all Leaf fans when I say this, by the way, but there's certainly some, because I mentioned it on the radio show today, and I got a couple of text messages from people saying, I'm the same way. Leaf game was on last night, and I tuned in just a couple of minutes late, flipping through, and I had almost forgot it was on. I'm like, oh, yeah, the Leafs are on tonight. It's on TV. So I watched it. They were down 2-0 at that point, and I thought, I just don't care anymore. I really think that when they tried to fish off some of those games to Amazon, many people have an Amazon account. I don't know how many people are actually spending more than they intended to watch the Leafs, but I don't like the fact that they did that they made their games in two different places, both of them that you have to subscribe to, whether it be cable or Amazon Prime, to watch your favorite team. I don't like it when sports teams do that, so I don't want to support it. And I realized last night, I don't care. This time last year when the Leafs were playing, I was into it. I would have been asking questions all over the place. What the hell's going on with Pacioretty? Why is Austin Matthews not playing? I just don't care. The Leafs actually, from the last few years of screwing it up in the playoffs and now moving some of their games over to Prime, actually cost a fan. And I'm not saying I'm not a Leaf fan. Not that at all. But I don't really care to watch the games. And I wonder how many other people have checked out and thought, yeah, it's just not feeling it this year. Maybe I'll check back in the spring if they're actually making a run for it or they're in contention. But this, I really think they need to rethink this deal with Amazon and either put all the games on Amazon or put all the games on TV. And if you want to put them on TV and Amazon, that's a different story. But this exclusively on a streaming service, not for a pro league. Not for me, anyway.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, I understand why people wouldn't like it. Like the fact that you have to have a streaming service to get anything that you usually or would otherwise get via cable. Totally get it. I think all that matters to them, like they don't care who thinks what.
Full stop.
What matters, they don't care. But what they do care about is money. Like, of course. So if, to your point though, if a lot of people are like you and they say, forget, I won't watch it. Keep in mind, it's about who's adding Prime, right? So Amazon is paying the NHL for these Monday night. Is it Monday night games, Monday night hockey, and then the odd other game, right?
Yeah, it's Mondays and then a couple of other games on the schedule.
Games. So if they find that there's a boost in Prime and how they even link who gets Prime based on that, I don't know. Because from what I remember, when I got Prime many moons ago, I was never asked why. Why are you doing this? Just for the shipping? Are you watching it for streaming? But they will know who accesses their streaming. So if they're able to tell, and I don't know what they're allowed to look on your data, if they're able to tell that they gained enough people to make that price that they paid the NHL worth it to do, they're going to do it. They don't care about anyone's opinion on it. The money is always the bottom line. But what I'm curious about is, will they ever release that info? Are they going to say, hey, we gained 10 million, I don't know, that seems exaggerated, but 10 million people who started to stream hockey through Prime, and now they have Prime, and usually how it goes is once you get a service, you keep a service, because you think, much for Prime, it's very unique. It's, well, I'm not just doing it for that. I guess I can also get that 2-day shipping. I guess I can also get XYZ, this, that, and the next thing that you get with Amazon. Amazon Music, if that's your thing, whatever. So I'm curious to know the numbers, because that's what's going to tell us. Some people love it because the picture quality is better. And in a lot of cases, it is for people. Some people actually like the way that they do it, although it is odd. The beginning parts, when you're used to watching it on cable and there's a certain way they do it, and then you watch it on Prime, you're kind of taken aback because you're like, oh, this is different. But for some people, that different is good. Others are getting used to it. But they really, the NHL, don't forget the reason why the NHL did this is not only, well, it's always because of money, I guess. It's always because of money, but also because they say they want to grow a younger audience. The reason why they're doing this is to get their demographic to a younger audience who will grow with the NHL. That is one of the reasons why Gary Bettman was very straightforward about it. He said that from the get-go, we want to get younger viewers. How can we do that? Let's try a couple of different methods, because they're finding their demographics, and what they're getting back from ratings is that younger people aren't watching it as much as they used to. So this is most definitely a business decision. Whether you like it or hate it, or it's a business decision. It might blow up in their face, though.
Yeah.
They might make a shit ton of money off of it and go, yes, we are finally getting more people watching hockey, more younger people watching hockey. It's a risk, right? Like any other business move.
From what I understand, and this is just anecdotal from someone who has somewhat of access to the statistics, it's like less than a third of the typical audience watching on Prime. for Leaf games in particular. So I don't know that it was necessarily a win there. I'm just thinking that the residual effect is you get guys like me who will buy tickets to a game, who will buy jerseys, who will support the team, and they've put me in a position where I just don't care. You know, the Leafs are dog shit right now. They won 3 in a row and then get smoked by the Senators, and just reminds me why I get frustrated with that team anyway. And there's other options. I'd rather watch the NFL. And I'll also say one more thing on this. WWE did it right. It's not like you have to have cable to watch Raw and you need Netflix to watch SmackDown. They're just plain moving it over to Netflix. Okay, I know then that if I'm a WWE fan, I need to subscribe to Netflix. I don't have to keep my cable because I don't need the cable because what I want to watch is now on Netflix. That's the way I'd like for this to work. I just want the Leafs to pick a lane. If you want to go streaming, go streaming. If you don't want to go streaming, then don't. But right now, I feel like it's confusing and it's kind of a big screw you to the fans. I thought it was unbecoming of the team to do it that way, but I get that they aren't the only ones who make that decision. It was made at a league level. I'd love to see it blow up in their faces personally. But we'll move on because there's other things happening today. We've got another big event happening on Friday when Mike Tyson boxes Jake Paul. They're doing the pre-fight interviews and weigh-ins and press conferences and all that sort of thing right now. Let me play a little bit of, actually, this is Mike Tyson on TMZ Live, is it?
Yeah, what I find interesting, too, is Mike Tyson can really pick whoever he wants to talk to, other than the press conferences that are allotted to them, by the way, and are fully paid for by Netflix, and they're paid for it, which is today, by the way, 7 o'clock tonight on YouTube, on Netflix's YouTube. You can watch the final press conference, and it's kind of fun to watch the two of them pre-spur, just with their words, I mean. But Mike Tyson chose to do TMZ Live.
This is an interesting clip. Listen to this.
What a lot of people are talking about is the age difference. You are 58 and Jake is 27, and that is a big disparity. What say you about that?
I don't know. Let's you see what you do for a living? Your guys? Mm-hmm. Do you think a guy 30 years your junior could do it better than you?
Absolutely not.
All right. Okay.
So what are you predicting? Are you predicting a knockout? Are you saying, because I know
that's my intention. My intention is to knock him out.
You're going to have to do this a little bit quicker, right? Because they've shortened the rounds, so now 2-minute rounds.
That's okay. Hey, that's okay.
That's never been a problem for you.
My quickest knockout is 8 seconds, so that's okay.
I would be scared shitless to interview Mike Tyson. You know, every time I see him do an interview, I get flashbacks of that time Nathan Downer interviewed him on CP24 and he called him a piece of shit.
You're a real piece of shit.
Oh, my God.
Did you watch have you watched the documentary?
Not yet.
Oh, my God. What are you waiting for?
I know. I got to get on it.
You got to get on it. It's actually really well done. I thought that it was going to be kind of like fluffy and blah. And sure, there's moments that are certainly fluffy and blah. But Mike Tyson takes the cameras into like his childhood home. You get to see his pigeons and stuff. He's such a unique man, Mike Tyson, obviously. I mean, you willingly attempt to have people hit you in the head for a living, and you're going to have an interesting person right there. But nonetheless, it gives a really good insight ahead of the fight. There's 7 matches that night, though.
Oh, shit, really?
There's 7 matches, but
I just want to watch one.
You're going to watch 2 if you start streaming for Netflix. So ahead of that, there are 5 other matches that are taking place before they start streaming. On the card that Mike Tyson and Jake Paul are on, there's also a really, really, in the boxing world anyway, highly anticipated match in the female boxing world. And someone who wants to reclaim the title that they once had. That backstory is also on the documentary. So if you're interested, check it out. But you will be seeing, if you start from the beginning, which will be at 8 p.m., then you're going to see that fight as well.
Okay.
But I'm curious, if you've analyzed it clearly, you've looked at his fights, what's his big weakness?
I think his weakness is getting in the ring with me.
Think he's overconfident?
Well, he has the right to be confident. Everybody has the right to be confident, but I just think it's a false sense of security against me.
How do you get psyched up for that? You know the man is completely vicious, and that's the kind of talk he's doing before the fight. That's almost too calm to be calm and settled.
Again, like if you don't know anything about Jake Paul, and I understand if you don't, because he is newer to a lot of things, and you probably know that he was a YouTube star, and you probably don't take him seriously, and that's fine, by the way. You're allowed to do that when it comes to boxing. Have a look at Jake Paul in the lead up to in the lead up to the fight with Tyson. By the way, he's very, very complimentary of Tyson. The reason why he wants to fight Tyson is because he knows he's the best. He has nothing but really kind things to say. And keep in mind, Tyson agreed to do this for a reason. He said initially he didn't want to do any fights with anyone. He wasn't interested. And Jake Paul had one conversation with him over the phone, finally managed to get him on the phone and talk to him about making boxing a thing again. And said, listen, nobody's really talking about boxing anymore. We're kind of at the wayside. Is that what you want? Is that what you want to leave your legacy? And he got him. Like, you know what I mean? He knew how to, I don't want to use the word manipulate because Mike Tyson seems like he knows what he knows what he's doing.
Oh, he knew how to push his buttons, though.
And Mike Tyson said, well, no, of course I want to be able to pass on like interest of boxing to people. That's what, he's like, well, this is one way you could do it to my young audience, for my young audience.
Interesting.
And he went, fuck, buddy, you got me. So good for him. So I think that there's a lot that we can say positively about Jake Paul. Do I still think Tyson might knock him the F out? Yes. 100%.
I do. I think he's going to knock him out in the second round.
Yeah.
I want to play another thing for you. We have been on this pod carefully watching the Diddy stuff. And we haven't even gotten to the Diddy stuff that's going to come out, but we're getting a little indication of what might come out. Harvey Levin from TMZ was doing an interview yesterday on News Nation. He says Hollywood is scared right now.
Yeah.
Listen to this.
It is true that Hollywood gets loud very quickly in certain cases. They did certainly with Harvey Weinstein and others. They have been very, very silent here. And I agree with you. I don't think just because, look, every celebrity in the world seems to have gone to one of these white parties. I mean, everybody wanted to go. And if you got an invitation, you went. So you can pretty much count everybody high profile has been to one of these parties. That's not disqualifying. That doesn't mean it's untoward. We're not talking about white parties. We're talking about after parties. We're talking about threesomes. We're talking about all sorts of things that are not those parties. But that said, there are lots of videos that Diddy kept over the years that have been now seized by the feds. And a lot of these videos are also going to some of the civil lawyers. Busby told us he has gotten a slew of these videos. And I think there's just panic in Hollywood. Am I on that video? Was I in some situation in 1999 or 2002 where it might be interpreted a certain way or might end up in trial? I think there's a lot of panic. And that's what we're hearing. And people just don't want the association and they don't want to talk about it. I think it's that simple.
Interesting. I've been wondering, why is nobody standing up and saying, I had nothing to do with this. I disavow Diddy. He's a piece of shit and I want nothing to do with him. Or I went to a party. I didn't participate in the freak offs or anything like that. Nobody's really coming out to defend themselves. And it makes me wonder if they were told, don't talk about this at all, or they've got something to worry about.
Yeah.
Hollywood is a very gross place. And it's not just a place, it's an actual concept. It's a theme. Hollywood is all encompassing for the entertainment industry. And you heard Harvey himself. Just about every celebrity there is has been to a Diddy party. The ones who did stuff after the main guest list left, those are the ones that I think have got some real legal troubles coming their way.
It worries me so much when it comes to this case that we're not going to find out the full truths. We also heard from a couple of people who were kind of a part of Hollywood, and then something happened, and then they got quieted up. I mean, I'm thinking about like the Ray J's of the world, if you will, which you could laugh at him, but he claims to know that there are people being paid off. There's several celebrities paying off victims. I don't know if that's true, obviously, or if they know who these victims would be from, let's say, 2002, 2004, up to whatever year you were a part of this. But of course you're panicking. I worry a lot about the people who aren't saying anything. We've had a very select few who have said something.
Hey, we keep hearing certain names more than others. They're surprisingly quiet. Like, I'm sure Beyonce is probably thrilled at all the Grammy nominations she got yesterday, and I don't think she even wants them this year. I think she wants to just lay low, fly under the radar, and hope that this goes away. That's just my take on it anyway. I can't imagine she'd want to be the center of attention before the Grammys if it's possible that video may be coming.
And you have to, she submitted, but you have to submit, otherwise it would have been sketchy. if this is the year that Beyonce did not submit her stuff for Grammys, then we would all be asking the question. So of course you have to continue on like normal if, let's say, Beyonce was involved. I think that I go back to, you know what I went back to too? Somebody posted something about Solange Knowles, and I went, oh, Solange Knowles, haven't heard about her. And then it kind of struck me, the elevator situation with Jay-Z and Beyonce. We still don't fully know what that was about. And I wonder if there's a tie there to something Jay-Z was involved in. I think we should question Solange, is what I think. Maybe she'll speak out against Jay-Z. If we catch one, great. Was Beyonce even involved? We don't know. Does she know stuff? I believe so.
I want to know who knows everything. Diddy obviously knows everything, but there's got to be more. Like even with Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell knew everything. I want to know who that person is in the Diddy circle and what it's going to take to make them talk. I'm really, really curious. And I'm also curious to see, once names start to drop and video clips start to circulate, is everybody just going to come forward, or is some whistleblower going to come forward, or is that just when everybody disappears? Like, bam, all of a sudden, there's no more Jay-Z. He's just gone. And I'm using Jay-Z as a random example, but not all that random, because there are certain names that keep coming up. If they didn't do anything wrong, I would have thought they would have denied doing anything wrong. But nobody's even doing that, which makes the story even more interesting. Let's move on, though, because we try and cover as much as we can in After 9. The new Doge has been appointed, Kat. Elon Musk is now in charge of the U.S. government's Department of Government Efficiency.
Doge. Okay. That's kind of what we figured he would be, right?
It's funny because I'm watching, what was it I was watching yesterday? It was CNN. And they've got all these experts on that are criticizing some of Donald Trump's picks for his cabinet, saying things like, well, you can't put that guy as the Secretary of Defense because he's not a politician and he's never worked in government. I kind of like the idea of people that have no experience in government being part of the government, because I feel like the people that do have experience in government have done nothing but screw things up for years. So they've got a guy who does a weekend show on Fox News, is the new Secretary of Defense. Elon Musk is in charge of government efficiency. And if I have learned anything about Elon from having followed him over the last couple of years, I think Elon's going to be exceptional at that job. He look what he did to Twitter. When he took over Twitter, he went in and fired more than half the staff, and the site is more successful than ever before. And I don't know if that basic concept, less is more, possibly resonates with people who are career politicians and not experienced in business.
This is so funny too. It just dawned on me the reason why they called it that, because Dogecoin.
It's his, yeah.
Yeah. So is he the Doja? Is that what we're calling him now?
Well, I mean, it is the Department of Government Efficiency, so the acronym just happens to fit, but it's a perfect fit.
But he created that.
He did.
Trump created that title.
Yes, there was no Department of Government Efficiency.
On purpose.
They were intentionally trying to be inefficient for generations.
Totally. My point is they made the acronym on purpose to match his stock that you can purchase anytime. It's kind of sketchy, isn't it?
I don't know if it's sketchy or just a happy accident, but either way.
It's definitely not an accident.
Why can't we have, I think we should normalize this in Canada too. Why would it hurt to bring in business people to advise the government on how to do things?
It doesn't hurt. And I think we should do that more. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I think it just makes sense. If you're filing your taxes, are you going to call a Brad Pitt to do that? Or are you going to call Kevin O'Leary?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you have tax questions, you're not asking certain people, you're asking others. Just because you have a big personality doesn't mean you're good with business. You know, and relationships and stuff doesn't mean you're good with business. I am all for more business people being involved in government stuff. For Canada, I wish that was the case here.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, I'll use the example that I refer to a lot, the LCBO. So my personal feeling is that the government shouldn't be in business. Government should create the conditions for business to thrive, but the government itself shouldn't be operating it, because government by nature is big and bloated. They're not necessarily experienced people. And that's how we end up with a secretary of or an education minister that went to a private school. Or that's how we end up with someone who's in charge of our healthcare system that's not a doctor or a nurse. Things like that. So why don't we bring in experts? In the case of the LCBO, if the government is not going to give up this government liquor monopoly, I don't understand why we wouldn't bring in some expert in retail like Starbucks did when they needed to turn things around. Starbucks brought in a new CEO. He made a lot of changes. Business picked up. Why wouldn't we consult an actual business person and say, hey, we've got this business. We're not selling it or anything, but it's costing us billions to operate it. How do we get that billions down to tens of millions? If you can save us a lot of money, we'll give you a cut of what you'd save. I'll bet you'd have a parade of good business people that are now incentivized to try and make these businesses that the government runs more efficient. OLG makes a lot of money, nearest I can tell. And a lot of the money from OLG gets reinvested into local communities, which is great. But could they be more efficient? Should we be hiring the CEO of Powerball in America and pay him $10 million salary? If they save us $20 million, it's worth it to pay them 10. I think there's an opportunity there, and I think Elon's probably going to do great work for America. I think we'll probably be pleasantly surprised. And the people who are freaking out because he has no experience in government, I give him a chance. He's made a very successful career for himself, not the least of which Tesla and SpaceX, which the U.S. government relies on heavily because NASA can't do what Elon Musk does. Let's talk about government a little bit more. We're going to be talking about tariffs for the next little while, and Premier Doug Ford did a news conference yesterday. Let's hear a little bit of what Doug has to say.
Morning, Premier. Lane Harrison, CBC News.
Hi.
First question is about the statement that you put out this morning regarding our trade with our southern neighbors. With all due respect, obviously you're the Premier, not the Prime Minister, so I'm curious why you felt it was necessary to wade into international politics with this statement.
Well, as I did before, it was the federal government that sent me down to negotiate with Bob Lighthizer, and since we're the engine of Canada and 95% of all the jobs that were created just last month were here in Ontario, we'd be the third largest trading partner in the world to the United States if we were a standalone country, which I never recommend. We do $500 billion a year in two-way trade. We're the number one export destination to 17 states and number two to 11 other states. So do we have a stake in this? 1,000%, more than any other jurisdiction. And we're going to continue to lead. I've talked to all 13 premiers across the country. But here's the difference, folks. You know, you look at Mexico, they're importing cheap products, undercutting our hardworking men and women, not only here, but in the U.S., from China. They're slapping a Made in Mexico sticker on and shipping it up and taking our hardworking men and women jobs away from them. Unacceptable. So we're doing, Ontario alone does $500 billion. Mexico, we do $40 billion. And guess what? They import $36.5 billion into our country. So they export 36.5 out of 40, and we export $2.5 billion. It's ridiculous. And they're undercutting the market. So what I'm proposing to the federal government, we do a bilateral trade deal with the U.S. And if Mexico wants a bilateral trade deal with Canada, God bless them. But I'm not going to be drawn down with these cheap imports taking men and women's jobs from hardworking Ontarians.
Interesting. Doug, I think, wants a war with Mexico. That's an interesting possibility.
Very.
I do get what he's saying, but, you know, this is something that I would have thought would have come from the Prime Minister or from the Finance Minister or someone like that. The reporter was quite right in that Doug is the Premier of Ontario, not the Prime Minister of the country. But in the absence of the Prime Minister of the country standing up and saying it, I guess somebody had to say it, is that Mexico is not really being a team player here with what Canada and the U.S. is doing. So Doug, without actually saying it directly in that clip, is more or less advocating for no more NAFTA, no more North American Free Trade Agreement. It's a Canada-USA thing and leave Mexico on the outside.
I was waiting for him to say, look, I like tacos.
I know.
Like the rest of them, but...
I know. There was so many different places that could have gone off the rails, but it didn't. So good for him. It's an interesting position. I don't know where we're going to go from here, but nearest I can tell, there were 3 different stories today on the Canadian Press Newswire about how all of Donald Trump's cabinet picks so far don't like Justin Trudeau personally. They don't like the guy. So they're pointing out that it's going to be interesting to see how this dynamic works out. January 20th is coming quick, and they got to figure it out. While we're talking about the feds, they are investing a little bit into AI, $50 million to set up the Canadian Artificial Intelligence Safety Institute. What's the acronym here? CAISI.
Not as cool as Doja.
No, it's not. The new institute is going to collaborate with similar organizations in other countries, which also don't yet exist. The head of the Pan Am AI strategy at the Canadian Institute for Advanced Research says Canada's a longtime leader in AI research. It's not clear, though, why it would cost $50 million to set up a safety institute or what the bureaucrats who work there are actually going to do.
Listen, the engineers and the people, the experts behind it, they charge a lot of money to be employed. So that I understand. The technical processes can be expensive. I wouldn't know what the total should be, but I know that a lot of that is all very expensive.
Yeah, maybe we need a private business person to set it up. Hey, why don't you get the location and hire the staff? And can you do it for $5 million instead of $50? Great, we'll give you a $5 million bonus, and you save $40 million. That's just doubling down on a good idea. Don't eat any dead birds if you find yourself in British Columbia, Kat. They're trying to avoid any further spread of avian flu.
Oh, are people eating the birds?
I don't know.
I've heard some people are eating the birds.
BC's top doctor is advising people to avoid dead or sick birds after a teenager was hospitalized with avian flu. They tested positive on Friday, and they're now in critical condition at BC's Children's Hospital. Dr. Bonnie Henry says people should keep their pets away from dead or sick birds and not touch them directly.
Yes. Do you remember being a kid? Don't you remember being a kid and there's always like someone in your neighborhood, let's say, or maybe it was even at the school or in front of the school or something, and there's like a dead squirrel or whatever. There was roadkill, there's birds. And there's always that one kid that thought it would be funny to try to grab a stick and swing it around at people. Mm-hmm. Do we need to go back to those lessons and let people know that they shouldn't do that? That's really a shame that happened to that young person. Maybe we need to have these conversations again.
I guess.
Are we forgetting that this is still a thing and diseases in animals are still there and still spread quite rapidly as well?
Avian flu. That's a weird one. I don't even know how a hospital diagnoses that. Do they have a test for that? Avian flu being transmitted from a bird to a person is extremely rare.
Yeah.
How did this happen?
No, it could have been any number of ways, right?
Canada's women's soccer coach, Bev Priestman, and her two assistants have been fired after an independent review of drone surveillance at the Paris Olympics. New Zealand complained about a drone flying over their practices before the start of the Olympic tournament. That prompted FIFA to fine Canada Soccer and strip 6 standing points from the team. The investigation found no evidence that players had viewed the drone footage. Okay, so we're back to this. We remember it during the Olympics. Bev got sent home. I didn't know that she didn't already get fired, but now she's officially been fired. And it brings up the question again, what did she do wrong? The drone thing, I don't understand.
Well, you're not supposed to film. I understand where they might go wrong. You're not supposed to film a competitor, right? In a private setting. And that was supposed to be their private practice. Am I wrong there? That was their private practice.
At the Olympics, yeah. They had a practice in a stadium.
Yeah, so you shouldn't be able to film that. It's the same as, that's in a way, for a lot of people, cheating. You're not watching game footage, which is available for consumption for public. You're watching private moments. And there are going to be moments within a team where you're going to have giveaways. You're going to be able to figure out, oh, this person's weak. You see them wrapping an ankle or something. Next thing you know, boom, go for the ankle. There's lots of reasons why. I'm surprised you don't think that that's not okay.
No, I don't think it's a problem. I think that if you have the ability to figure out what another team is up to, or you're just that good at analyzing video to the point where you can give your players an advantage, I don't know that that's a fireable offense. Maybe. At the most, I would say that that's not very good sportsmanship, but it doesn't seem like something that should be as taboo as it is. To me personally, we've been screwing around with this for a very long time. Apparently, there's some evidence to suggest the head coach of the men's team may have known something about this going on, and it really just makes me wonder, does everybody do this and we just got caught, or are we really the only piece of shit country in the world?
I'm wondering that too, but I think that this is at least going to highlight it and have people very aware of their surroundings from here forward, especially when it comes to big competitions. The Olympics are one, you know?
Mm-hmm. And finally, the National Toy Hall of Fame in Rochester has picked out their new honorees. My Little Pony is going into the Hoff. My Little Pony girl when you were growing up?
Yep, I was. And my kids liked My Little Pony.
The Phase 10 card game. Have you ever played that?
Nope.
I don't even know what that is. Transformers action figures.
Yep.
Also in.
Okay, that's a classic.
Now, these are the ones that made it. The ones that didn't make it. The party game, Apples to Apples. Choose Your Own Adventure books. Was that too early for you? Did you have Choose Your Own Adventures?
I remember those. No, I remember those at the Scholastic Book Fairs being a hot commodity.
I used to read those books and then forget what I selected to get to the ending that I liked, but I could never seem to replicate the same ending. Pokemon trading cards didn't make it into the Hall of Fame, yet it's one of the most popular toys, quote unquote, on Earth.
Yep.
What else didn't make it here? Pokemon. Sequence and the Stick Horse. You know the broomstick that had a horse head on it?
It's great.
Pretty morbid if you think about it, but that has made the toy, just missed out on the Toy Hall of Fame.
It's because Mama couldn't buy me a pony, so she bought me the next best thing. Stick with a horse head.
But you know what? It just goes to show you can give a kid anything, and they'll find a way to play with it.
Yeah.
We were given a damn stick with a horse's head on it,
Yep.
and we had endless fun. Like, oh, look at me, I'm riding a horse. No, you got a broomstick between your legs.
Yeah, it's called imagination, right?
I think that I haven't even. Do they still sell those?
I think so. We had one with a unicorn head on it, though, at one point.
Really? Mm-hmm. Did you feel like you were flying?
I didn't. You think that I wrote it?
You had to show your girls how to use it?
No, they figured it out.
Oh, did they?
It's fine.
That's good news.
Thank God I didn't have to do that. Now that's drone footage that you would not want leaked.
They still don't know why those two buildings in Hamilton fell down, so we will continue to answer that question, or try to find answers to that question.
Everything's fine.
We'll put a pin in it for now. I'm just going to say it's not normal for a building to just fall down in the middle of the day in downtown Hamilton, so I'd like to know what happened there. But until we get some answers, that's a snapshot at what's going on in the world today.
You missed the most important thing that everyone's talking about.
Oh, the sexiest man?
Yes, come on.
Okay, so John Krasinski is the sexiest man alive.
Yeah, that's really all you need to know about that. Do you want to? Do we want to hear from John Krasinski quickly?
Oh, if you've got something from him, yeah,
all
let's
right.
hear it.
Here we go. This is about his wife.
Was she like, it's about damn time, or she's like, yes, darling, I don't know. There was so much laughter on the other end of the phone. It was hard to get words, but
Sure. They just want to find a guy to make them laugh. Isn't that what they say?
Exactly.
So you didn't tell anyone?
The only person I slipped and told was the day we did the shoot. I went to Matt Damon's birthday party. And when I walked in, name drop, don't worry about it. And when I walked in, he was having such a good birthday, and I was late to the party. And he was like, oh man, why are you late? And I was like, oh, I was doing this photo shoot. And he's like, for what? And I was like, people sexist! And yet again, I think he thought it was a bit because he was like, oh, come here, man.
He seems like a nice guy, though.
He does.
I don't hate a little extra publicity for John Krasinski. Jack Ryan, by the way, his wife is Emily Blunt, in case you're curious and you can't keep track of who's married to who. I get it. Emily Blunt is his wife.
You figured this out. You know the formula for people's sexiest man alive. Every year we go through this, and one of the things that I learned from you is that it's not as important to ask who the sexiest man alive is. It's more important to ask who turned it down before they got to this guy as the sexiest man alive. Because if I gave you 100 guesses, John Krasinski would not be in that top 100.
Not at all. But not necessarily because I don't think he's attractive or anything like that. But again, to your point, it's really is just who's agreeing to do the photo shoot, the interview spread, and the interview rounds, too. Like, he had to show up on Colbert last night and do the whole thing. He has stuff to promote, though, and he has a lot of interests at heart on his own table right here, especially with his wife, too. So the fact that people are talking about him, his projects, it really is a win for a lot of people, but for some, they don't want the attention. Ryan Gosling has said many times he's turned it down. He's not interested in the extra attention or anything like that.
So even if you are the sexiest man alive, you can decline that honor and pass it off to someone not quite as sexy as you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's like giving someone else a shot, you know? How nice.
Spread the wealth. Have yourselves a great day, everybody. We will see you tomorrow with more After 9.
Bye, friends.
Officials in South Carolina announced they've captured 25 of the 43 monkeys that escaped from a lab, which is a very positive way to say we lost 18 monkeys.
HBO said that season 3 of Euphoria is finally moving forward with production next year. That's right. The last season was 3 years ago. Yeah, it's like Euphoria and Stranger Things are competing for oldest high school kid.
Hey, Dad, can I stay up past 10 o'clock?
A Disney cruise ship rescued 4 people over the weekend from a sinking catamaran off the coast of Bermuda. We're good, said the other 9 people on the catamaran.